If my kingdom were of this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over, Jesus says. But Jesus and his kingdom are not from this world. Jesus is not a king with a crown and a robe and a medal and a scepter and a throne and kingly music. So Jesus will not defend himself through violence. Jesus will not establish his claim by violence. Jesus will not usher in God's kingdom the way most earthly kings do, by violence. Jesus will make no followers by violence. Still, when Jesus stands before Pilate and declares, "If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over," you can't help but laugh at the irony. Remember last Sunday when the detachment of Roman soldiers and religious authorities came to arrest Jesus? They came well armed with torches and weapons. But at least some of Jesus' followers must have been armed too. Because when these men came to arrest Jesus, Peter is ready for a fight. He draws his sword and cuts off the ear of the high priest's slave. Now Jesus, already under arrest, is quick with a rebuke. "Put your sword back in its sheath. Am I not to drink the cup the Father has given me?" Peter, we can assume, puts away his sword. Then he slinks away into the lengthening shadows. When he reappears by the charcoal fire, he not only has quit fighting for Jesus, he's denied him altogether. It seems to me that it's not really faith in Jesus' kingdom that causes Peter to put away his sword, but it's fear. Fear of the power of Rome. We live in a world, just as Peter did, that is marked by so much violence. We see it in heartbreaking mass shootings at schools and nightclubs and movie theaters. We see it on the nightly news with footage from places like Syria. Some of you hear about it in reports from your home countries. We see it in our cities, where the police become more and more militarized. We normalize violence in the music that we listen to, in the television that we watch, in the games that we play. In subtle ways, we even perpetrate violence to the earth by the amount we consume and throw away, to our global neighbors by our demand for cheap products without regard to the lives of the people who make them, in our national discourse when we vilify those with whom we disagree or use racial slurs or prejudice. We even do violence to our friends and our families when we are careless with our words. As I listened to the choir sing just now, they sang, "You better mind." Do we mind? Do we pay attention to how much violence is around us and even within us, in the words that we speak, in the way that we treat people, in the way that we talk about people on the other side of whatever issue it is? Sometimes followers of Jesus want to do what Peter did outside of the garden. We want to raise our swords and fight violence with violence. Sometimes we think that more guns are the answer to mass shootings, or that stronger armies are the answer to terrorism and military threats, that tougher policing is the answer to crime, or that yelling louder will silence our opponents and prove us right. Other times we think there's nothing we can do about the violence in our world. There's nothing I can do to stop the degradation of the earth, or to change the political discourse, or to alleviate global and local inequality. And so we act like Peter on the other end of his story. We hunker down and do nothing. our silence and inaction making us complicit in the violence of our world, our silence causing us to deny our identity as followers of the Prince of Peace, a different kind of king. So do Jesus' words to Peter and to Pilate mean that Jesus is calling us to be pacifists? Some traditions, particularly Mennonites and Quakers and Church of the Brethren, they've given vivid testimony to the power of Christian nonviolence. Their witness has been courageous and countercultural. We shouldn't just discard it quickly. Our tradition, the most mainline Protestant traditions, have stressed something a little different, that temporal authorities like armies and law enforcement have a role to play in creating a more orderly and just world. I think that's why it's particularly painful when law enforcement doesn't live up to that calling, when they contribute to more violence instead of building peace. Standing within this tradition, the Presbyterian tradition, the Lutheran, the Methodist, the Catholic tradition, I think perpetrators of violence, whether that is in school shootings or terror attacks or local crime, perpetrators of violence should be opposed vigorously, fought tirelessly, and brought to justice whenever possible, so that there's less such violence in our world. But as members of the church and as followers of a very different kind of king, we also have to bear witness to the fact that there are limits to the reach and to the outcome of force. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., another Christian witness to the power of nonviolent resistance, said this: "The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing that it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence," he said, "you may murder the liar, but you cannot murder the lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence, you may murder the hater, but you do not murder hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate." And so it goes. Returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Probably heard this part. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So drawing our swords at every threat, whether real or perceived, will not drive out violence. But neither will hiding in the shadows. To be followers of Jesus, whose kingdom is not of this world, does not mean fighting the kingdoms of this world with their own weapons, but neither does it mean withdrawing from them. Instead, we seek to live in this world as citizens of the kingdom of heaven, loyal to a king who is not of this world, living under the rule of law, but also with our ultimate allegiance to the Prince of Peace. What does this look like, you might wonder? On Thursday, my friend came over with her 2 children to go sledding. And as we warmed up with a cup of hot chocolate, I pulled out one of the very few children's books that I own. And while their feet dried out, we read it together. It's called The Peace Book. And on many of the pages, is it a children's book? Yes. But what it says about peace may not always be so obvious. On many of the pages, my friend's daughter asked, "What does that have to do with peace?" And so we talked about it, page by page. And I'd like to read it to you this morning. The Peace Book. Peace is making new friends. How much we build peace when we make friends with people who might not ordinarily be our friends. Peace is keeping the water blue for all of the fish. How we make peace, not only with the animals who swim, the fish who swim in the waters, but with the people who need to eat the fish. People who don't have to fight for a food source if the water is clean. Peace is listening to different kinds of music. We understand people sometimes through their music. Perhaps more obvious, peace is saying you're sorry when you hurt someone. Peace is helping your neighbor. Peace is reading all different kinds of books, even books that might challenge your worldview. Peace is thinking about someone that you love. Peace is giving shoes to someone who needs them. Peace is planting a tree so that our earth is cleaner, more beautiful. Peace is sharing a meal. I talked with my friend's daughter about whether that means sharing what you have or inviting someone to your table. Maybe peace is both. Peace is wearing different clothes. We talked again about how that might mean wearing different clothes than what you normally wear. Last Sunday, a group of women put on different clothes than what you normally wear. And some women put on different clothes than what they've ever worn before, as a sign of peace, the peace of Christ within that group. Peace, I may disagree, is watching it snow. Peace is keeping the streets clean. Peace is offering to hug a friend. Maybe peace is knowing when a friend needs a hug. Peace is everyone having a home. Peace is growing a garden. Peace is taking a nap. We may chuckle at that, but how much do we lack rest and Sabbath in our lives? How much would we build peace if we took time to be restored, for God to restore us? Peace is learning another language. How many of you feel a sense of peace, feel that you're making peace when you greet someone in their language or when someone greets you in yours? Here's one for laughs. Peace is having enough pizza in the world for everyone. Peace is keeping someone warm. Peace is new babies being born. Something maybe we take for granted here, but that isn't taken for granted everywhere in the world. Peace is being free. Peace is traveling to different places. Tucson, you go as a peacemaker. Peace is wishing on a star. My friend's daughter wondered, what does wishing on a star have to do with peace? The freedom to dream, the ability to dream, I think, is at the heart of what it means to have peace in your life. Peace is being who you are. The end. Is this a feel-good kids book? Maybe. But in our world that is marked by violence and by retribution, by punishment, by so much hatred that comes way too easily, this is also the stuff of peace. This is the stuff of a kingdom that is not of this world. It's for children, but it is also for us. Perhaps it's even harder for us as adults. We may need this book even more than our kids do. So when others are sharpening their swords and reloading their guns, when others are hiding in the shadows, silent and afraid, this is the stuff of Jesus. May you have enough faith to put away your sword. May you have enough courage to step out of the shadows. May you have enough love to follow the Prince of Peace, a king not of this world. May it be so. Amen.